Hey folks, this is Kelani. With the first day of BlizzCon done and dusted, you must have noticed some of the buzz going around. A lot of people are excited, and a lot of people are disappointed, probably depending on which game you were most interested in before yesterday. Diablo fans might not have much to write home about right now, but the World of Warcraft panel was chock full of exciting details for what lies in store. I'm actually a little surprised about how far some of these details go. I know we were expecting a good chunk of info about the patches after 8.1, but it looks like we have a pretty good picture of what 8.2 is going to look like as well, thanks to the What's Next panel. Let's jump right into the good stuff by checking out what patch 8.2 is going to be all about. Patch 8.2 is currently called the Rise of Azshara, which really could mean only one thing. The Naga are making their entry and Queen Azshara will be leading them. We're going to have to wait quite a while before this patch even hits the PTR servers though, but we have a rough idea of how things will pan out. After the events of 8.1 and 8.1.5, with the Alliance assaulting Dazar Allure and trying to make a quick exit once the Horde starts rallying their troops, it looks like both factions are in a bit of a pickle when all is said and done. We're nursing our wounds, recovering as best we can, but that makes us the perfect, ripe target for some nasty Naga who will be assaulting our shorelines on Zandalar and Kul Tiras. They're not being too clean with the whole ordeal either, dragging bodies back into the ocean, feeding some form of dark ritual. It definitely doesn't look good, and we can't ignore it forever, so both factions end up taking what remains of their fleet, and they sail out into the waters. Eventually, they come upon a jagged crack in the ocean, which will lead us down into the ancient land of Nazjatar. Anyone who thought we were going to end up in Nazjatar for 8.2, give yourself a gold star. We're taking the fight directly to the Naga. One of the big questions whenever Nazjatar came up was how will the underwater deal work this time around? Even though Vashj'ir was unique and cool the first time around, the entire zone being underwater didn't sit too well with a lot of players, and many folks simply avoided it unless they absolutely had to go down there. Well, worry not, this zone won't be underwater, at least from what we've seen so far. It looks like there's just dry land masses here which are sort of underwater because there's a bunch of waterfalls everywhere, so water is above us somewhere. We just don't really have to deal with it all that much. It makes for a very pretty landscape though. There's large kelp trees dotted around the place, and I'm assuming we'll see quite a bit of ancient elven architecture. Probably some old god influences thrown in for some good measure. We're still leading up to that after all, especially with Queen Azshara thrown into the mix. So the zone of Nazjatar will serve much like the Broken Shore or Argus, where the story is really told in the zone, and then that leads up to the next raid release. So 8.2 introduces the story content, and then we'll probably venture into the new raid properly in 8.2.5, at least that's probably how things will go if we stick to the content cycle from Legion. To that end, you'll need to find some allies in Nazjatar if you want to get anywhere, and it just so happens there's a few outcasts here and there which might just need our help. On the Horde side, you'll befriend a ragtag crew of sea giants, Gelbin and Makura. Nazjatar doesn't seem like the friendliest place under the sea, and the Naga do have a pretty nasty tendency to enslave pretty much anything or anyone they can get their hands on, so these chaps are ex-slaves. I'm guessing they got out, so they probably know a way in. Helping these lovely chaps will surely be beneficial for all parties involved, and I'm sure one of them will have that secret passage into Azshara's Eternal Palace. On the Alliance side, you'll get to meet what looks like a new take on the Jinyu. They've been down here for a while and things aren't really getting any better for them. Hopefully they find some solace in helping you slaughter a few hundred Naga though. In the panel, I believe they were called the Uncohen, so we'll have to see how that translates in-game. Who knows, fish people might just be next on the list for allied races, and who wouldn't want to play a Gelbin? I mean, I probably wouldn't play a Gelbin, but I'm sure a few folks out there would. Now, one thing was emphasized again and again when Nazjatar was on the big BlizzCon screen: replayable outdoor content. It seems like Nazjatar will definitely be the new hotspot for patch 8.2, and if we really have a reason to come back every day, then a few more of my guildies might pop on for more than the few hours a week it takes us to get through our raids. I'm definitely itching to have a reason to look forward to logging in, and if they get these next few patches right and focus on that replayable content, Battle for Azeroth might just turn out to be a great expansion. And just in case you needed a little extra poke to get you from mildly interested territory and into the really excited mindset, how about an amazing seahorse horse mount? It looks like there's going to be plenty of goodies in store for us at the bottom of the sea, or wherever Nazjatar actually ends up being, including a few mounts. That seahorse course, Horse looks really cool, but now I'm worried we might actually have portions of this zone being underwater. I guess we'll have to wait and see on that one, but that crab mount on the left, you might notice his little saddle thing is a bit skewed. That's not a design error, no sir. In fact, this crab just walks sideways. So if you ever wanted to shuffle along on a crab that walks sideways, well, I guess you better get excited for patch 8.2. It's just a shame that it's going to be a little ways away at this point. There's also some pets to collect, including a baby Naga. Go ahead and tell me that's not the cutest Naga you've ever seen, with his wee fork too. Let's just make sure he doesn't grow up to be one of the slavers, yeah? So that's what we know of the zone and the story so far. Not really a great deal, but this patch probably won't hit public test rounds for another few months, so we've got plenty of time with 8.1 and the Battle of Nazjatar lore before the Naga come around and start stealing our friends. But we do have a little bit more information about a new raid on the horizon. Queen Azshara's Eternal Palace will serve as our next staging ground, and as you might expect, we'll be working our way towards a last boss of Queen Azshara herself. Now, whether or not we manage to actually finish her off before she can teleport herself out or be spirited away by Nazoth or someone else in the shadows remains to be seen. She is supposed to be the Gul'dan of this expansion. That could mean we kill her in the second big raid, which didn't really happen unless you don't count Uldir. Or maybe it could mean she sparks off the events that lead to the next expansion. So we could sack her palace, but we might not see the end of Azshara in this patch or this raid. We will see how the Naga are reproducing though in the Naga hatchery. That's probably not a pleasant sight, and we might even have to deal with an underwater boss. That one's got a big question mark next to it, and I'm not too surprised. I doubt the dev team really has a solid plan for how to deal with this one. I'm really interested to see if they can get that to work, and whether or not it would be the entire fight underwater, or maybe just one of the phases. I think it could be an interesting little gimmick boss, but might end up quite frustrating if they don't manage to get things just right. Personally, I think that could be great fun, but I can already hear some of my guildies grumbling about having to move up and down, as well as left and right. Oh, you silly gooses, you. In total, the raid in 8.2 will have 8 bosses, if nothing huge changes between now and then, so a pretty typical boss count for a raid tier. If we throw in a random shark as the underwater boss, 1 or 2 maiden or matron Naga sea witches who are looking after the hatchery, and Queen Azshara herself, that leaves us with quite a roster to fill. We might end up facing some huge brute Naga like back in the Tomb of Sargeras. There could be a few handmaidens just before Azshara that make up a council fight, but apart from that, I guess it's pretty much all open. Remember that this is Queen Azshara's palace, so it's probably safe to say it's filled with her loyal subjects. Down in the depths of Nazjatar, that's probably going to mean a lot of Naga and various other sea creatures we haven't come across yet, and then there's probably a slavers section in there too. That could tie things in quite nicely with our little allies working on the outside. Maybe they need a few friends rescuing, or I'm pretty sure they'll be happy to have the rest of their races rescued at the very least. There are some new Naga models that we got a quick look at as well, and this one doesn't really look like any Naga we've seen previously, so anything sea creature related could pop up, which is really exciting. All typical Naga bosses and trash mobs would get pretty old pretty quickly, so hopefully they throw in a few things to spice it up. We don't have any information relating to any extra raids for this patch, so right now it looks like this will be the only one to tie into Nazjatar. Crucible of Storms seems to be an 8.1 only thing, and we did only get one small raid in Legion. The rest of them were pretty big, and there was only one of them every raid tier, so I wouldn't be too surprised if that's how it goes from now on. I'm really looking forward to seeing more of the zone itself, and I'm really interested to see which direction they went with when it comes to underwater sections, and tying the whole under the sea, but not fully underwater theme together. But that's all of the info we have right now about patch 8.2, and let's be honest, for something so far in the future, we know quite a lot already. I'm glad they seem to have their roadmap well planned out, because if they didn't have any idea about patch 8.2 by now, we'd be looking at a very shaky flow of content for sure. But with patch 8.1 coming soon, patch 8.1.5 coming sometime after that, and patch 8.2 already in the works, hopefully they can keep the content flowing so we'll always have something to do in the World of Warcraft. Oh, and by the way, just in case you hadn't heard yet, we do have an official release date for patch 8.1. The Tides of Vengeance will be hitting live servers on December 11th, so it's a little further out than we might have expected, definitely a bit later than I had hoped at any rate, but with bits and bobs still making their way onto the PTR right now, I guess it's really no surprise. So we'll get some new content in December, and patch 8.2 and Nazjatar will probably be on the PTR in 3 to 4 months maybe. What do you think of heading down to Nazjatar and with it not being fully underwater? What about facing off against Azara? Do you think we'll end up tying that loose end in 8.2? Or will she escape to become yet another raid boss later on down the line? Leave all your thoughts in the comments section below. A big thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon. You can see their names floating by on screen. If you want to join these lovely guys and gals, you can find a link in the description below. Remember to leave a like just below the video before you leave, and if you want to see more, make sure to subscribe. But apart from that, thanks for watching folks, good luck and have fun, and as always I will see you next time.